Hey guys, today we are talking about hand pain and gaming. So I'm in a disabled gamers group on Facebook and we talk a lot about like having really sore hands when you're gaming. I personally have ADS, that's Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I do have a video on that. If you guys are interested, I'll tag it at the end of this. It's kind of a complicated disorder, but for this part, let me just explain that my hands are hypermobile. I don't know if you can really see my fingers kind of bending back like that. Kind of hard to see in the camera. And they dislocate really easily too, and then they hurt all the time. And I also have like early onset arthritis in my hands, so I have a lot of trouble when it comes to gaming. Now, maybe you don't have medical issues, maybe you just have sore hands when you're gaming, but I'm hoping that maybe I have a few things that can help you. These are the things that help me. And I gotta say the spiel, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physical therapist, I'm a gamer. So this is not like medical advice, this is just some tips that I've learned. And I figured I'd share them with you guys. Maybe something can help you. And I'd also love for you guys to share your advice, your hacks, your tips, whatever you've come up with to help you in the comments too. So let's get started. If you only stay for one recommendation, let it be my first one, arthritis gloves, number one. So arthritis gloves are compression gloves, and they're not just for people with arthritis. They are very, very handy for hand pain. Now, let me be clear. I'm not being paid by anybody. I don't recommend any specific brands over anybody else. I'm just going to tell you what I use. Now, I've been using this Copper Hands brand. It's from Amazon. Super cheap. It says copper infused, and it has like these little dots of copper. Let me be clear about this too, is that these dots, they're just paint. I don't know about the copper infused, but I know for compression, they work pretty well. So you need to make sure whatever brand you get compression around your thumb, and you're going to want to get smaller than regular size. So like I wear large size gloves, but I get small medium gloves for these. So I've got some other brands too. These were just at Walmart in the As Seen on TV section, so they're pretty good. You know, you just need to make sure, like I said, you need to have the compression. I ordered one pair online and they were pretty loose in the thumb and they didn't really do a whole lot. So you want to make sure they're tight. And yeah, you can see like the tips of my fingers are a little red, but my fingers aren't going numb. You do not want them to go numb. I swear by compression gloves. I use these all the time, not just for gaming. I really, 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 really recommend them if you have hand pain. All right, on to number two, which is custom controllers. Now, most of these can be used with PC, but we'll discuss PC stuff later on. And also, this is different than the adaptive controllers. There's the Xbox adaptive controller, and I've never used that. I hear good things, but that's more for people with serious hand disabilities and like, you know, missing limbs or loss of a finger or something that they cannot use the controller, the regular controllers. Now, there's different ways to get around that without using the adaptive controller, but we're just going to talk about what I use for just dealing with hand pain. So I'm an Xbox girl and I use the Xbox Elite controller. This one's pretty expensive, I'm not going to lie. Let me explain to you briefly why I suggest it. I'm not trying to sell this to you. Let me just tell you, it's got adjustable sticks. So there's ones that are taller that come off. It's also got a D-pad that's flat. Here, I got it. And it comes with these detachable little triggers that you can put on the bottom. So if you have trouble, for instance, I have trouble pushing down on the sticks because my thumb sometimes dislocates when I do that. So if I have a game where I have to push down on the sticks a lot, I'll attach those little paddles to the back, button map my right stick as one of the paddles, and then all I got to do for right stick is hit the trigger. The sticks are pretty grippy, and like I said, there's different sizes. And also, there's trigger locks, so you can set it so that instead of pulling the trigger all the way, you put the lock on, and you can only pull it that much. That's all you have to pull it to make it work. So these are pretty handy, but the other big thing is that I can turn down the vibration on these. And with Xbox right now, these are the only ones you can turn down the vibration on. And I'm telling you, if you have a way to turn down vibration, that's going to save your hands so much. A lot of people turn it off entirely, but I have trouble hearing, so I use the vibration to like hear things around me sometimes. Like I know something's sneaking up on me because my controller did a little vibration. But if you can turn it down, it's super helpful. Okay. My least favorite console right now for hand pain is the Switch. So here are the Joy-Cons, right? These things. And I took some close-up pictures, but basically they're really, really hard to use. And when I go to push on the buttons, they're so much lower than the sticks that my thumb kind of dislocates when I'm going over them like that. So first, you can get this. I think this came with our Switch, actually. And you slide the Joy-Cons into it. Like that. But still you have the problem with having to push down here and being up here, and it just doesn't really move very smoothly. You can see my thumb popping in and out, actually. So I ordered this on Amazon, off-brand. I don't even know what the brand is, but it's a Nintendo Switch controller, but it's like a regular controller. This is more like the Xbox controller, and you can see it looks just like an Xbox controller, but if you look carefully, it's got the different buttons here. You can see plus and minus, and then the A and the B are switched around, the X and the Y are switched around, which drive me nuts. But this is a lot easier for me to use. Now, I don't play PlayStation, but I know that there are some options for PlayStation players too. So I would just look online for different controllers. And I mean, the Elite controller was really expensive. This one for the Switch, because it was off-brand, it was like on Amazon for I think $15, $20. It wasn't bad at all. If you don't want to spend money on a whole new controller, you can just get little grips for the thumbsticks, and you can get like pieces of controllers that you can put on other controllers that have a little bit of grip on them too. They're pretty handy, so you're not just gripping the controller super tight all the time. So let's move on to number 3, which is controller settings. Lots of games have button mapping abilities, and it's kind of becoming more common as people decide that they want to help out with disabilities a little bit more. So a lot of games you can change the buttons that you're using. So let's say you use jump as A, but you're having trouble with A, so maybe you want to move it to right trigger or something. I don't know what you want to do, but you can manually change that in a lot of games. You can also usually change sensitivity settings. So like if you're finding that you're trying to aim, but you're moving the sticks too much, you can lower or raise the sensitivity in games and mess around with that a little bit. I personally like to lower the sensitivity, and then I'm not moving around so much. All right, I keep talking about controllers because I'm not a PC gamer, but let's quick talk about things like the vertical mouse. So that's number 4. Now, I've never used one of these, but I am looking into getting one myself, and an ergonomic keyboard too. They are very handy, apparently. They're more like a joystick, I would say, than a regular mouse. You can see I've got a few photos here of different ones. I don't have any brands to recommend to you, but maybe somebody will post in the comments with the ones that they use. I hear really good things about them. So number 5 is Kinesiology tape, and the most common brand is KT tape, but I personally don't use that one. It's usually pre-cut and pretty expensive. So this is what I've got, and I order it in bulk on Amazon. This is a partial roll. It was out to like here before. Now it's not pre-cut, so you got to cut out the amount that you want. There are other YouTube tutorials on doing specific things with KT tape. I'm not a hand therapist. A lot of people know better than I do about this. I'm just going to show you real quickly one of the things that I do. This one especially helps with my thumbs, but I have used it on other joints too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off a little piece. So I don't know, that's about 4 inches. And now when it comes to KT tape, if you want it to stay on and not peel off really easily, you want to round the edges. So I'm going to take a scissors and I'm just going to round the edges. You can see just kind of cutting off the edge. Doesn't have to be perfect. So here, I mean, it's not the prettiest, but it's got some rounded edges. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it in half, but not all the way. I'm going to cut it down to like here. So I'm going to cut it in half. And I'm going to stop like about there. See? And then I'm also going to round these 2 new corners I made. So what I do is whatever joint's really bothering me, like let's say it's this one right here. I will put the KT tape below the joint, and then I'm going to wrap these pieces around it just to kind of hold it tight. So you're going to want to rip a little edge off here. I usually like rip it like this, just kind of pull it, it'll rip. So then we're going to peel off the bottom piece. And like I said, we're going to put it below the joint so that the top, the opening here, is going to go below where my thumb knuckle is. Okay, and then I'm just going to kind of smooth it down. You don't want to pull it too tight, especially if you have sensitive skin. It can cause blisters if it's too tight. And I mean, sometimes they'll have you tighten for certain ways, but for this one, I'm not going to tighten it very much. So I'm just going to kind of smooth it flat. Now, when I do this part, I'm just going to pull a tiny bit, not very much, just a tiny bit to give it a little bit of pull here. So I'm going to pull this off. You probably pulled the whole thing off. Now, I made mine a little long, but basically I'm going to wrap it around here. And then I'm going to wrap it back around my thumb and just kind of move it down. It doesn't have to be exact here. I'm just going to kind of flatten it down, and then I'm going to wrap the other one around too. Okay, so this isn't beautiful. I'm no artist when it comes to this. And I'm apparently not smarter than the KT tape. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to peel that off. Oop, and now see how it's stuck to itself? You really don't want to let it do that because it doesn't stick very well after that. So I'm just going to wrap this one around the other way. Now it doesn't stick very well to itself, and if you want it to stick to you really well, you got to do friction. So you want to kind of rub it a little bit, warm it up, do some friction. It's a little awkward. Sorry, this looks weird. But just try to get it rubbed in a little bit. Now I can still move around quite a bit. I don't want to use so much and tighten up my top knuckle here too much. And then this is just kind of supported a little bit so that it stays in place a little better. So if my joints are really loose, I'll do this. Or if they're just really sore, I'll do this. Now there's other ways you can tape up your hands. And you can also use the tape and the gloves together. And I would recommend just looking into KT tape and the different uses for it. Basically, any injury you have, any joint you want to like support, there's a video out there on how to do it. Oh, and I also use it on my wrists. Here, let me show you that one real quick too. Okay, it's not pretty. Rounded edges, about little over 2 inches long. And I'm going to put it right here on my wrist because right here I get a lot of pain. So let's try to move this more in the camera so you can see what part of my wrist this is on. And we're not going to cut this one other than right here. We're just going to stick it here, and then I'm going to pull it tight and kind of put it down. Now, again, don't pull it too tight because it can cause blisters, and you do not want that to happen. So to rip that off, people usually do it like that. And then I'm going to start down here. See if I can get that on the camera. And I'm actually going to just push the edges on a little bit. Sorry, I'm really bad at holding up my hands for the camera. And then pull this off. Like I said, I'm just going to pull it a little bit tight. Not too tight. And then I'm just going to run it down. And then you kind of grab the edges. So you got to be careful when you're rubbing it with friction that you don't want to catch the edge like I just did and peel it off. And then again, you got to rub it. And I can still wash my hands with this stuff on and they'll stay on for like a day or so. This actual brand will actually stay on. If I'm not using it on my hands, it'll stay on for a couple days. It's just I wash my hands a lot, so it doesn't always stay on too well, but it should last you at least a day. Now, some people have sensitivity issues when taking this off, so you can take baby oil and just kind of soak it on top of the tape before you remove it. That can help. I just don't use the KT brand because that one's a little stickier. The ones that I use seem to be okay with my sensitive skin. Okay, this is getting pretty long, but let's move on to braces and rings really quick. So again, I'm not a doctor. Talk to your doctor before doing braces, especially if you're using them long term. But for short term, I sometimes use wrist braces, just like this. And then kind of like the arthritis gloves, I also have stabilizing gloves for my thumbs that are just for thumbs. So I kind of threw this under the braces category. So if I'm really having trouble with my thumbs, I'll just put these on. I picked these up at Walgreens. I don't even know the brand. Neo. Apparently. So yeah, and then I use the braces. Now sometimes I use the braces with the gloves. Now it's hard to brace your actual fingers, which I'll explain here in a second. But for wrists, this is just, I think I got this, God, I don't even know where I got this. You can get this at any pharmacy basically. It's super old. Sorry, it's not the greatest looking. It's got dog hair on it. But this just holds my wrist a little steadier for days where I'm like really loose. Sometimes I have days where my joints like pop out all the time. So this just gives me a little extra stability on those days. There's also ring splints, and I can't find mine, so I'm going to take pictures and add them after this. So you can see my fingers here are hypermobile, like I showed you in the beginning. It's kind of hard to see in the camera, but it's called a swan neck deformity here. And so if you have that issue going on, ring splints can help kind of straighten the joint and keep it from hyperextending. So you'll see the pictures I have here. Now, these ones I have personally get a little sore when I'm holding controllers, but I know that there's other ones that are a little nicer that are not like double wide, that are a little easier when using controllers. I bet these ones still work really well when you're doing stuff with PC. But I also just use it other times when I'm not just gaming so that it helps a little bit here and there to keep my hands a little stronger. The last one, number 7, is relax. This one's like a note to myself too because I'm really bad at relaxing. So when you're holding the controller, when you're pulling the triggers, when you're pushing the buttons, try not to like really grip it tight. Try not to pull on the trigger with like anger, don't mash the buttons. Just controllers are pretty amazing, especially nowadays. You don't need to do a whole lot to actually use them. Use light finger touches. Don't pull the trigger like crazy. Try to keep things under control so you're not just like really pounding on your controllers. Don't hold your hands really tense like this all the time, and make sure you're taking breaks. You should be taking breaks anyway. They always say you gotta take breaks, stretch, all that good stuff. Maybe you want to learn some hand exercises to do while you're taking breaks, whatever floats your boat. So if you have any tips or hacks or anything that's helped you, any advice you want to give other people, please post in the comments. I really want to hear from you guys. Gaming is a huge part of my life and I want to enjoy it as long as possible. So these are the things that have helped me. I really hope it helps someone else. Feel free to share it with anybody else that you know that might be struggling. And of course, if it helped you, please consider subscribing for more content, lots of gaming content. And if you guys are interested and you like this video, let me know. I can do more of this type of video. I did one other video on EDS, which I'll link here at the end. But if you guys enjoy this kind of thing, I will do more. Otherwise, thanks for your time. I really hope this helps. Happy gaming.